If you've ever felt like you're not smart enough to work in investment banking, this video will change your mind. Because the truth is, I did not have the perfect grades, nor did I have elite connections, but I still broke in and now I lead on multi-million-dollar deals. And trust me, the same is possible for you. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what investment banks look for and how I went from knowing nothing about finance to one of the strongest VPs in my team. And I promise this is not some generic list. This is based on my personal experience as an investment banker here in London. And the final thing on this list is actually what got me promoted faster than my peers. So you're going to want to hang around, stay with me. So let's address the first question. How smart do you have to be to work in investment banking? There's a common belief that investment bankers are super smart, and that's simply not true. They're pretty smart, as are most people in professional roles, but generally speaking, investment banking is not rocket science. There are much more technical roles out there, think quant and data roles, securitization, etc. And the truth is that everything within investment banking can be learned by most people and is typically learned on the desk, i.e. once you've started the job. From a maths perspective, investment banking requires basic arithmetic applied at speed in different contexts. So think addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, percentages, fractions, and interpreting charts and graphs. This is tested via psychometric tests, which you'll do as part of your application. And for these, you can buy practice packs, practice, and you'll get much better. It's relatively straightforward. Beyond this, to sharpen your brain, I would do some Sudoku in the mornings. I still kind of do this when I have time. And this sort of sharpens that logical thinking. Now, taking a step back, how much do grades matter? Well, it depends on two things. And the first is the stage of your career. So generally speaking, the earlier you are in your career, i.e. if you're fresh out of university, your grades matter more. Whereas for career switchers who are already working, grades matter less because experience matters more. The second thing is which banks you're targeting. So for the top banks, think JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, etc. They are very competitive, so they need a method of screening, and therefore grades here matter more. So you have to scale your ambitions accordingly. If you don't have top grades from a top school, then top banks are probably out of the question. But the good thing is there are a lot of banks. Think Japanese banks such as SMBC, Mizuho, MUFG. Think European banks, SocGen, BNP, Santander. Then you have regional banks in each country, boutiques, and a lot of these have lower expectations. To take this a step further, investment banks assess you on more than just your grades. In fact, they consider multiple metrics such as communication, and we'll talk a lot more about this shortly, relevant experience, interest, how likable you are, etc. Now, I don't want to dwell on this. I've created other videos on how you should specifically position yourself across these metrics, and otherwise, this is exactly the sort of stuff we help our clients at Charter Mastery with. What I want to talk about is how I navigated this. So if I think about my skill set, I was always smart, but I was never the smartest person in the room, and I preferred balance. I like playing sports, socializing, having fun, just generally being normal. So grades-wise, I did pretty well, but not the best. And with university, it was the same thing. In fact, I actually slacked for a lot of my degree, and although my final grades were pretty good, I could have done better. And I generally did enough to stay in the game. Not enough to target the top programs at JP, Goldman, etc. But that's okay. As I said, there's a lot of banks. I figured out my edge and figured out my targets and then doubled down on that. And really what I discovered was my edge and my strength was being an all-rounder. And specifically, one of my key strengths was communication, my ability to present and have a conversation. And I figured this was an edge over the so-called nerds who had brilliant scores in their exams, but maybe struggled to articulate this and have conversations, versus me, who was a bit more comfortable doing that. And generally, I realized that getting hired, whether it be in investment banking or any other role, is sales in motion. It's all well and good having credentials and pedigree, but can you articulate that? And here's where verbal communication comes in, and is the first big thing that I want to discuss. There's so much I could say here, but I want to focus on two things. One, expressing your value, and two, building relationships. On expressing value, the key point here is it's all well and good having capabilities and skills, but can you express them clearly and in a compelling way? You don't have a lot of time to make an impression, but if you can communicate well, people will understand your value quicker, which makes it easier to get hired. And generally, if you're a clear communicator, you actually sound a bit more intelligent than you maybe actually are. Certainly the case for me. And the best thing about communication is you can get better at this. And the first thing I do and did a lot of was read. And this expands your vocabulary, but also improves your clarity of thinking and allows you to assemble points more clearly, which essentially is what being articulate is all about. Secondly, I rehearsed a lot, especially interview answers and my elevator pitch. And ultimately, I realized there is no substitute for preparation. And the more you practice, the more fluent you get, the less you have to think. And as I said, you don't have long to make an impression. So if you can deliver things in a succinct way and make people understand, that helps you progress. And finally, I did some public speaking. I took some courses and rocked up at some local clubs and just delivered some random speeches. And honestly, yes, at the beginning, it is nerve-wracking, it was stressful, but then you overcome it and you realize most people don't care. Everyone's in their own head. And this helps you then in pretty much all interactions in your life. And it was kind of the precursor to me eventually launching a YouTube channel. So as I said, expressing value is the first part of communication. The other part is building relationships. And here the point is being social and comfortable talking to people. And if you are social and comfortable talking to people, more people will like you. Now, I would not say I'm a social butterfly, and there's many people out there who are much better at this than me. But generally speaking, when you're interviewing or once you've landed a role, you are going to speak to a lot of new people and you want those people to like you. And if you're a good communicator, that will help you achieve that. Now, the first thing that helps here is practice. Basically, just talking to as many people as possible. And here I would focus on varying the age, gender, ethnicity, and so on. So you have practice and you're comfortable communicating with a wide range of people. Then the question is, what do you actually talk about? And the honest answer is, it doesn't matter. What you need to get good at, or certainly the way I approached it, was to get good at questioning and then listen. And what this instigates is people just love talking about themselves. So the more insightful questions you ask and the more curious you are, the more people will be sort of welcomed to talk about themselves. And the more they talk about themselves, the more important they feel. And so when they leave your company, they kind of remember you because they're like, oh, that guy, that girl was pretty cool because once when I was with them, I felt very comfortable and important. And that's a good memory or impression to leave on someone. This is the approach that I follow with seniors because they have a lot more experience and a lot of stuff to talk about. And you want to make them feel important, but you don't want to sort of, flatter them too much. What you want to do is ask insightful questions, be curious, and sort of extract information from them too, whilst making them feel important. And as I said, it will be a memorable conversation for them too. The key is don't brag about yourself in these interactions. As tempting as that is, you want to express value, but try and find a natural way to talk about your achievements or what you've done or your interests, but generally steer the conversation towards them more than yourself. So that's a lot of stuff about communication, specifically verbal communication. And I think that's a crucial thing to develop and something that really helped me overcome the fact that I didn't have perfect grades, so to speak. So that's the first thing. The second thing is getting really good at your job. Now here, of course, we're assuming you've landed the role, and this video is not just about breaking in, but actually succeeding in investment banking. So when you land on the desk within investment banking, you actually won't know what it means to be good at your job. Now, you can try and figure that out via trial and error, or the more efficient route to this is to observe the top performers, try and identify what they do very well, note them down, and then focus on upskilling on these specific areas. Now, you can also accelerate this process by actually asking these people, and here, of course, trying to build a relationship with them is going to help. Now, I would say as an analyst or associate in investment banking, the things that you really need are technical knowledge, i.e. your understanding of finance, financial modeling, writing reports and memos, and building pitch decks. Now, in terms of the first two, i.e. technicals and financial modeling, this is kind of the big part of the job. Now, what I would say is that on the technical front, I basically did as much additional research as I could, attend seminars, do the reading, plus eventually I did CFA, right? So here's something that was totally voluntary. Most of the team don't do it, and of course it makes your life much harder. But one, you obviously have a super structured curriculum, you learn so much about finance, and two, this is all volume of information that most people are not going to have exposure to. So if you can truly learn that, you now have an edge over your peers. The second one is financial modeling, and this is a big one. This is kind of like bread and butter as an analyst or associate. And if you want to be a top level analyst in particular, you have to get good at financial modeling. Like this is a no brainer, no questions asked. What I did was I took courses and then I tried to own this work stream. Every time I was on a deal, I'd be like, give me the model. Even if I didn't fully know how to do it yet, I would work on it. I would make some mistakes. I would look up how to address those mistakes. And otherwise, I would collate questions and then I would find one of the best modelers in the team, sit them down and be like, can I have 30 minutes? And in a super targeted way, I would ask all my modeling questions. So the other person didn't feel like I was wasting their time. And I was, again, accelerating up that learning curve. And this actually opened up a big opportunity for me because roughly a year or so into my time in the team, My MD's MD, so this is a pretty senior guy, reached out to our MD and said, "Look, I need one of your associates to do a modeling task for me." And the MD sent it out to the team. And as soon as I saw it, I picked it up. I had no idea what the ask was. I just picked it up because I was like, right, this is a good opportunity for me to exercise my modeling skills. And although I didn't fully know how to do it, I learned along the way. And then I leveraged that skill set both on the deals that I was working on, but also to start building templates for other teams. And eventually, I was then known as the modeling guy. I was running training sessions for the new analysts and so on and so forth. And this honestly is a great reputation to develop because, as I said, in leverage finance or most investment banking roles, modeling is super key. And if you're known as one of the associates or analysts who's very good at modeling, more people want you on their deals. And this really relates to my point around finding your strengths and your edge and then really leaning into it. So, as I've just discussed, modeling was one of my edges and I enjoyed it. So, I really leaned into it. Doing the CFA was another thing. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed learning. So, for me, it was easier to stick at it for 3 years or 2.5 years versus others who really struggled to clear the first hurdle because they just didn't enjoy it as much. So, again, I found that this was one of my edges and I leaned into that. Another thing was presenting on deals. This kind of links back to my point around verbal communication and me understanding that this is one of the things I did well. Most juniors are never trusted in investment committee to present on a deal. But for me, I looked to assume this responsibility as early as possible. So I would try and find one part of the deal, and often it related to the modeling, which, as I said, naturally sort of goes hand in hand with the fact that I assumed ownership of that workflow. But anything related to modeling in investment committee, I would say, look, I built the model, let me present this part. And again, initially, maybe some hesitation, but once you do it once or twice, you overcome your own nerves and you build more trust in the team, and people just let you run with it. And over time, you can then expand from just focusing on modeling to more and more parts of the deal, which is what I did. So by sort of 2 years into the team, I was kind of running not the entire investment committee, but I was contributing much more heavily than most of my peers. Now, that sort of covers getting good at your job. So far, we've discussed verbal communication, getting good at your job. And now the third thing, and I've already alluded to this via an example, which is to always say yes and then figure it out. Show initiative and find solutions. And honestly, this has never been easier because of the presence of AI. You can literally say yes to everything and then figure out how to do it. And if you're somebody who does that, shows initiative, is a self-starter, specifically whilst you're quite junior, the team will value you so much more. As an analyst, I would do this all the time. Every team that I was in, I would try and find a pain point, either by observing or by asking people, and then I would just find a solution. And once I found the solution, I would literally bypass everybody and go straight to the most senior person that would give me some time a day. And then I would present the solution to them. And then they would pass me on to the relevant person, so on and so forth. But the overall point was showing that initiative and the fact that you're someone who brings solutions to the table. For example, when I was working in project finance, another investment banking role that I did, I realized we would go into meetings on Monday mornings and everyone would discuss their deals, but it was very fragmented. There was no central tracker or database which logged all the deals and had all the information, which seemed like a pretty easy thing for me to fix. So I built a tracker. I then overlaid some pretty simple VBA that I picked up online and built in functionality, which essentially produced a PDF of that tracker and sent it out to all the meeting participants before the meeting with one single click of a button. And it sounds complicated, but actually the VBA, once you spend some time with it, was relatively straightforward. And I didn't even know VBA. I literally just learned it online, and now you could use AI to do the same thing. And suddenly the whole team's like, whoa, this is actually a game changer for our workflows. And as a junior member of the team, you've immediately added value. Now, another thing, we've just discussed being someone who says yes and finds solutions and is a self-starter. Another thing you want to target being is reliable and a team player. People often think that investment bankers are only in it for themselves. And yes, there are some people like that. But generally speaking, those who actually are team players and they help others and they contribute beyond their specific tasks and day job are people who tend to progress faster. As a junior, look for opportunities to take things off other people's plate, particularly senior people. If you can do this, again, they'll appreciate you and it's simple value add from your perspective. But as you rise up and get promoted, don't forget the juniors below you. Spending time with them, working with them, educating them, supporting them will mean that they enjoy working with you, which means they go the extra mile and they say good things about you. And seniors and MDs also appreciate this. And beyond this, always deliver when you say you will. If you can develop a reputation as being a trustworthy and reliable member of the team, more people want to staff you, more people want to work with you. And in the long run, this will go in your favor when it comes to promotions. I think the central point here is advocacy is everything, and you want to give people as many reasons as possible to vouch for you. But all of this is all well and good, being a team player, being reliable, helping others, and so on and so forth. However, remember, and this is the big point that I alluded to at the start of this video in terms of what helped me get promoted faster than others, you need to sell yourself. Your career progress is your responsibility. Banks are big places, and you may think that it's a meritocracy and all your hard work will naturally be rewarded, but unfortunately, that's not the way it works. People are very busy and generally only worried about themselves and their own problems, particularly seniors. So it's your job to make it clear to them why they should promote you. Now, as we discussed, being a great communicator, being great at your job, showing initiative and finding solutions, being a reliable team player, all of these things help. But then the key is making sure that decision makers are aware of this. The first thing is make sure you speak up in team meetings, be vocal. It's all well and good being busy and working on a lot of things and adding value, but if nobody knows about it, then nobody's going to reward you for it. So you got to speak up in team meetings. Then make sure you track and document everything. All the deals you worked on, your contributions to those deals, the fees that they've earned, any feedback that you have, and if somebody gives it you verbally, ask if they can put it in writing, store it away, and make sure you have it ready to recall at the end of the year. Also, any achievements, any awards, employee of the month, any professional qualifications you have, track everything so that you're ready to bring it all together at the end of the year. But beyond that, make sure you're letting people know throughout the year as well. So I would schedule at least a quarterly meeting with your line manager, ideally monthly, and also one with your MD or whoever is more senior than your line manager, at least once a quarter, and have these conversations with them. Talk to them about what you're doing, the value you're bringing, where you're upskilling, what you still feel like you can improve. Like, it's not about bragging. It's about making people aware that you're aware of your own strengths and weaknesses and that you're trying to upskill, and generally you're trying to be a valuable member of the team. And honestly, this one thing meant that I progressed faster and earned more than most of my peers, particularly during my time as an associate. Essentially, I just tracked everything and I was super open and communicating with key personnel about my contribution to the team. Most decisions around promotion, bonus, etc. are made towards the end of the year, and the key is to guide the opinion throughout the year in the build-up to that decision, rather than presenting your case cold right at the end just before the decision. Remember, life is literally sales, and every job is sales no matter what job you're in. There you go, my honest assessment of what it takes to work in investment banking and succeed in investment banking. And hopefully I've debunked the idea that you need to be super smart. There are so many facets to this, and even if you don't have perfect grades, you can offset it in other ways. So if you like this, then go ahead and subscribe to the channel and watch the next video. You'll appreciate that too. Thanks for your time. See you there.